All right, let's talk about a mindset that can honestly change the entire way you look at your own success. It's a framework called the gap and the gain, and it's all about revealing the secret to seeing just how far you've actually come in life. So let's start with a question I think we've all felt at some point. You land that huge goal, you finally get the promotion, you finish a project that took months, and then nothing. The happiness is gone in a flash, or maybe it never even shows up. So why is it that our biggest achievements can often feel so, well, empty? It's such a weird paradox, right? And what's wild is that this feeling is incredibly common, especially for people who are always pushing themselves. On paper, you're crushing it, but you've got this nagging voice in your head telling you that you're constantly behind, always chasing something you can't quite seem to catch. Okay, so let's dive into what's going on here, because this isn't just a random feeling. It's a very specific mindset. And this psychological trap, it actually has a name. It's called the gap. So what is the gap? Well, think of it like this. It's when you measure yourself where you are right now against some perfect, idealized version of yourself in the future. You're constantly looking forward, judging today's reality against this flawless and, let's be honest, often totally unreachable idea of where you think you're supposed to be. And this quote from Dan Sullivan just hits the nail on the head. He says, "The ideal is like the horizon. It's a great pointer, it gives you a direction to head in, but you can never actually get there. The closer you walk towards it, the further it moves away. So if you make the horizon your finish line, you are literally programming yourself to always feel like you're coming up short." And you see this happen in the real world constantly. Picture an entrepreneur, right? They grind for years and finally make their first $1 million. I mean, that's a massive win by any standard. But if they're living in the gap, their brain immediately fixates on the person who made 10 million, and suddenly they feel like a total failure. They're measuring against that far-off ideal, not where they started from. And this is the key takeaway here. The problem isn't having big goals. Ambition is fantastic. The flaw is in the yardstick you're using to measure your progress. The problem isn't your ambition, it's your ruler. Which, thankfully, brings us to the other side of the coin. This is the solution, the alternative way of thinking. It's all about the power of the gain. The gain is such a beautifully simple but really profound shift. Instead of measuring forward against some impossible ideal, you just turn around. You measure backward. You look at who you are today, and you compare that person to who you were before. That's it. The only question that matters is, wow, look how far I've come. When you're in the gain, you become your own benchmark. It's a completely internal measurement. It totally removes other people, society's expectations, all that noise from the equation. Your progress is measured by you and only against you. And this isn't just about a quick mood boost. Thinking this way actually builds something psychologists call psychological capital. You're creating real mental assets for yourself, like hope, efficacy, which is just a fancy word for your rock-solid belief that you can get things done, resilience, and optimism. And these are the exact things that fuel all your future success. Okay, so we've got these two totally opposite ways of seeing the world. Let's put them side by side so you can really see the difference. Here's a look at the gap versus the gain in action. This is where it gets really interesting because you see how this changes everything in your day-to-day. So with motivation, right? The gap is all about feeling like you're not enough. It's driven by what's missing. But the gain, that's driven by growth and seeing how much you already have. Or think about scrolling on social media. In the gap, you're constantly comparing your real life to someone's perfectly curated highlight reel. In the gain, you can still look at that stuff, but it's just inspiration, not a weapon to beat yourself up with. It really does change how you experience your whole life. So this all sounds great, right? But how do you actually start living in the gain and stop falling into the trap of the gap? Let's get really practical here and talk about a daily practice you can start tonight. Okay, the actual practice is super simple but incredibly powerful. Some people call it a 3 wins exercise. So first, before you go to sleep, just take a minute to think back over your day. Second, you're going to physically write down 3 gains, 3 things you accomplished. And hey, these do not have to be earth-shattering. Small wins are absolutely perfect. And third, this is the most important part, you got to repeat it every single day. That consistency is what literally retrains your brain to start looking for progress automatically. And the psychological payoff for doing this is just huge. This one simple habit makes sure that you end every single day with a real, tangible sense of accomplishment, a feeling of winning. You go to sleep focused on what you did do, not all the stuff that's still left on your to-do list. And that is how you build momentum for tomorrow. So as we wrap up, I just want to leave you with this one final thought to chew on. Seriously, take a moment right now and look backward. Not at your ideals, but at where you started, maybe a year ago, maybe 5 years ago. And just ask yourself this: how much progress have you already made that you've simply forgotten to measure?